Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. This is episode 55, and I am your co-host, Trisha Bertram Gallant, and I am delighted today to be joined by my two newest co-authors. Yes, another book coming out soon, March 17th, with Cambridge University Press, and I'm so excited to introduce the audience, if you don't already know them, to Mary Davis, a colleague of what, 20 some years. I think we both been in academic integrity, and Zeenath Khan, a newer colleague of mine, who is what, how old are you in academic integrity world, Zeenath?
Since 2005.
I was gonna say, okay, yep, 20 years, so a long
Yeah.
time. So not actually that new either. But new to me. I think we've only known each other for a few
Yeah.
years. So welcome to the cast.
Thank you. Quite excited to be here.
Yay. And so we're going to start. I know this is kind of odd because the three of us are co-authors on this book, but I'm kind of hosting today. I'm going to do my normal hosting gig where we do the first two questions with the two of you, and then we'll just talk as a trio. And Zenith, let's start with you. Tell people more about you, what you do in what context, and that can include your work at the university, but also your work beyond there.
I'm actually in the School of Computer Science because I got a degree in computer science. So I teach responsible information systems, and that's what I've been teaching for forever since I joined the university as an instructor. But of course, academic integrity is absolutely my passion area, and that kind of drove me to ultimately do my PhD in that area. And so this is what I've really been focusing on. So technology and academic integrity and how that kind of, what's the bridge, what are the problems, what are the advantages of having technology in classroom or not having
Mm.
technology in the classrooms. And being where I am regionally, because I'm a Bangladeshi, I studied in an Australian university and I work in one, but I'm in the Middle East,
Right.
right? So it's quite a global experience, to say the least. Like I'm
Yeah.
such a global citizen, and I speak English, of course. So understanding academic integrity from all of those kind of angles has really been an exciting journey for me, for myself, to develop my understanding and then to bring that back into the class.
That's awesome. And I was going to say, don't forget to, for those watching, they have seen a feline cross Zena's path there, and you failed to introduce us to
Yeah.
your cat, so I think you should.
Yeah, so that's Fluff.
Fluff.
And whenever I get on an online meeting, she feels the need for attention and she's not here the whole week, but today she is here. So that's
Oh,
Fluff.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
She's welcome. Oh, there she is again. She's welcome anytime. She looks
Yep, she's not
gorgeous.
moving.
Yeah, she looks gorgeous, and she does look fluffy, so that's a good name for her for sure. Mary, what about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking parallels with Zenith. There are lots of them. I don't have a cat though. I've got a
Oh,
dog next to me
okay.
that may well appear at some point, or at least be audible in the background snoring. But I mean, one key similarity I have with Zenith is that I also did my PhD in academic integrity, and I think that was a really crucial step for me to become so involved in academic integrity. Other than that, though, there are a lot of differences. I work at Oxford Brookes University in the UK, which is the other university in Oxford, the less famous one. But
Surrounded by wonderful pubs.
yes, and the dreaming spires of Oxford University. We have a great view
Yep.
from our campus. Um, But I have the role as academic integrity lead, which is quite common in the UK, to have someone in a role that's basically kind of steering the work of academic integrity for the institution. So it tends to be like a single role. I worked as an academic conduct officer, actually investigating cases for about 10 years prior to that. But I think for about 7 years now, I've been the academic integrity lead. So I do things like I lead on changes to policy, at the academic conduct procedures. I work with the investigative team. I'm consulted on difficult
Mm.
cases or problems. But my main role is a sort of advisory one. So I advise any member of staff, teaching staff, or non-teaching. We tend to use the word staff for
Yep.
all employees, right? So
Yep.
I mean faculty as well as professional services.
Yep.
And all students. So I run training for both staff and
Mm.
students for inductions. I make the academic integrity resources, teaching resources, or study advice. I work on making additional resources such as videos to sort of help and advise. And yeah, I think that's probably most of my role. Of course, that's still not a full-time role. I'm
Yes.
also a professor. I
Yes.
work in education mainly, which also shapes my academic integrity work. So it's very much always an educational angle. I don't know if you want me to talk a bit about my work beyond.
Well, so
Maybe later.
I was gonna plug you both actually. So one for audience members, all three of us did our dissertations on academic
Ah,
integrity. We are a member of an elite group, very small, but growing. I think there's more and more people doing that
yes.
work. But
Yeah.
my degree was granted in 2006, and Mary was publishing before that.
Uh, oh, I'm
Around
not sure. Maybe just
2003, I
about
thought, or
around
four.
then.
Yeah.
But my uh, PhD, I know Zeenath and I found this out before. Wasn't it the same year, 2014? Was it
No, mine was 2015. Like I submitted by
2015? Okay,
2014
but
and
we're
then I
around the
got
same time that we
conferred
finished.
in
Yeah.
Took me 7
2015.
years.
Okay. Okay. So I am older in the dissertation sense. Okay. The other thing I was going to say was Mary and Zenith are very influential and impactful beyond their institutions. Both do a lot of work with the European Network for Academic Integrity, extending their knowledge and out to all across the world, really, even though it says the European network through research and initiatives they do. And Mary is a rock star also in the International Center for Academic Integrity as a board member and the editor of Integrity Matters blog, which is a lot of work. And she
Another
and
area.
International Day of Action,
That's it.
which only happens one day a year, hence the Day of Action. But man, does she put on a show of 24-hour programming, along with who's been your partner the last couple of years? Rachel?
Rachel Gorgeop. So actually, not quite 24 hours.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I would struggle even with the sort of rock star billing. No, I go for 15 hours.
But
But
the whole
I'm
day
on
is
Zoom.
24, no?
No, we do
No,
15
okay.
hours.
Okay.
Okay. So no, I think that was done, wasn't it? Time before Zeenath,
Yeah, when we had
2020,
hit the fifth
during the pandemic,
anniversary. Yes.
we did a
Like it
Okay.
was
24-hour
2020,
special.
and so we did a 20-hour
Yeah,
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
yeah.
And
yes.
maybe
No,
it's 20, maybe it's 24 hours if you consider the time difference of like when it
Yeah.
starts and then when it ends in that original times.
well,
So,
yes. One of the things that I try to do is so I start fairly early in the UK, which is obviously evening in Australia and New Zealand. So I
yeah,
start with presenters from that part of the
yeah.
world. And then when I get back there and it's the next day there and they're back at work, I usually end with a session from Australia or New Zealand. So that's the
Right.
point where I think, okay, I think I've done enough now. It's sort of all the way around. We've done a full
Right.
day.
And
Um,
that is usually around October 15th. It's usually the Wednesday of the third week
The
of
third
October.
October.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Third week,
Yeah.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
third Wednesday of
Yeah.
October. And of course, Zeenath always plays a big role
She
in that
does as
event too.
well. And we started that. I think our first one was 2016,
That's
16,
great.
and it was
2016.
focused on
Yes,
contract cheating at the time to try and
yes,
raise awareness because
yes,
people were not paying attention. And I feel
at
like
all.
honestly, artificial intelligence, still people aren't paying attention to the human to human contract cheating
No.
industry, even though it still exists and is still very, very big, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've certainly got concerns about that, but I mean, regarding the day, I think it was a good move to change the day. It was
Yeah.
something that I proposed because I felt that just focusing on a fight against contract cheating would make made our focus a bit narrow
Yeah.
Yeah.
and also I have to say a bit less positive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think fighting for academic
Mm.
integrity rather than
Integrity.
Against.
against contract cheating is a really important move to
Yeah. Yeah.
at least from my perspective. I think that the major focus on education and sort of for academic integrity is so important, and I think it helps us have a more global message as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think even the conversations have become more positive because of that.
Mm.
Like all the things people are presenting are
Mm.
not just about catching or what do we do after we have caught.
Yeah.
That conversation has shifted
Mm.
because of the positivity of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a very rough transition. Um, well, maybe not. So if it could be a positive memory, it could not be a positive memory, Zeenath. So our typical second question is your first memory of encountering this idea of academic integrity. I'd already told my story. I was all the way in my PhD program in 2002. First time I've ever heard of it. But Zeenath, what is your first memory?
So I have a very funny story that I always tell at my spring camp that we do annually for students. And it's that when I was actually in seventh standard, because I had moved from one school to another,
Mm.
and the school that I was moving from was a completely British curriculum taught by British teachers. So I had a very strong British accent when I moved to the next school. The next school was also British curriculum, but it was run by non-British
Ah.
teachers. So automatically the accent really stood out like a sore thumb to everybody, right? And I had a really difficult time adjusting. And then within like in the first term, I realized the one thing that the students seemed to really enjoy and appreciate was cheating skills. So I started picking up on that, right? Like, how can I become good at it so I can then have friends? So by the time I had like the first term exam, I had picked up some skills and I was in that school for 2 years. So by the end of the 2 years, I could actually help students on the other end of the class get answers from somebody from my side of the class.
What were you
Yeah,
doing? Like
yeah, yeah. There
baseball
were so
signals?
many, even, distracting the examiners and, sending out graph papers out across the paper without the invigilator knowing, you name it, and I could do it.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, my parents then decided to change my school. And I didn't realize why. But I was so upset with them that they changed it. And their excuse was, no, the school's farther away from home, so we're bringing you closer to home.
Mm.
And I ended up going to a convent school when I was in eighth grade, right? So I was
Yeah.
around by then I was like 13 years old.
Yeah.
And of course, same thing, right? I was in a class full of new people and I thought, I know how to make friends. I helped people out, right? I wasn't cheating, but I was
Right.
helping everybody. And it was like, oh wow,
You were
it's
the
so fun.
provider.
Yes, right? And everybody was like, oh, we need to sit next to Zeenath because she's amazing, right? But lo and behold, then after the exams finished, we had the principal walk in. And
Mm.
the principal, she was a Sister Fosca, that was her name.
Yep.
And she walked with a limp because when she was a child, she had polio.
Yep.
Right. But I didn't know all of that, of course, in eighth grade. For me, the word was Terminator because that's what everybody else called her. So she walked into the class and then she said, I know you cheated. I know who cheated. I know how you cheated. If you come clean, we will not penalize you. I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way she knows. I've done this for 2 years. She's just saying that. But the moment she left, the girls started crying. And I looked at them and I said, oh my God, these girls are going to snitch on me. So I thought, what am I going to do to save myself from this situation? So then I went up to her and I said, I have a confession. Now, please understand, I'm from a Muslim conservative background. So confession isn't really something we do,
Yeah.
but I was like,
At a Catholic
we
school.
say yes, it's a Catholic school. So I'm going to say that. And she's like, sure, go ahead. And then I said, I cheated. And I really did think I would have shaken her world by saying that, but she didn't even look up from whatever work she was doing. And she was like, okay, what do you want from me? I said, you said if I came clean, you wouldn't really penalize me. She's like, okay, I won't penalize you. And I'm thinking, yes, Zeenath's done it again. So, but then she goes, but I have one condition. I'm like, what's the worst she's going to tell me, like stand up in front of the class and tell them or whatever. She's like, I'm going to give you 3 days to go and tell your parents that you cheated. Now, coming from a conservative family, my parents were both teachers in their background. So I think this for me as a 13-year-old, this was so much worse
Yep.
than anything else she
A
could have
great
said.
penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me the 3 days, but I think those 3 days really took a turn inside me. I was like, wow, this is so not worth it. Because it's not like I was cheating for me.
Yeah.
I was cheating to be popular.
Yeah.
And so that I could help my friends.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually I did buck up the courage to tell my parents. My mom started crying. And my dad was like, we know. I was like, what do you mean you know? They're like, yeah, we knew this is what you were doing in the previous school, and that's why we wanted to change your school. And we did inform the principal ahead of time that this is what we were concerned about. So, I grew up at a time where we didn't have a concept here of school counselors.
Yeah.
But I think my parents and the principal did such a fantastic job of this mind game that they played with me that it really made me think. So it's not really that I was so good at cheating that nobody could catch me. It's like
Yeah.
everybody knew about it, but maybe the people cared a little less in my previous school than the people here, that they made the effort to kind of bring this up for me. So that it was like an epiphany for me as a teenager. And by the end of that school, not just the year, but the whole schooling, by the time I finished my A levels, I'd become so honest. The teachers would move my seat to protect me from other people cheating. And sometimes I'd get worried. I'm like, why did you move me? I was not cheating.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we know you're not cheating. We
Yeah.
just wanted to ensure nobody else was cheating from you. I was like,
Wow.
wow. Okay. So that kind of stayed with me. And I kept thinking everybody must be this honest, right? Because I was now honest.
Yeah.
And I still had friends. I was still making friends and everything was okay. I finished university and then I started teaching and I started seeing students cheating. And I was like, why? Why are you cheating? Like, I really wanted to know. And that kind of drove me to start looking at, is it the internet? Is it the technology? Is it the copy pasting? What is it that's driving students to cheat? And that became my thesis.
That's awesome. That's an awesome origin story. And I kind of love how they really dragged it out. And in the end, I think you learned more from that than if you had just gotten in trouble that very first time. Not that I'm encouraging people to let cheating go on, but I love that. I love that story. It's such a good kind of was that awakening of your integrous self, right? Mary, I don't know how you're going to top that.
I cannot.
Except with your honesty. You can.
Absolutely no, but I don't have a parallel story to share in that what I can say about sort of an early memory isn't related to my childhood, but more in work. And it's kind of why I decided to make academic integrity the center of my work. So yeah, it's kind of a lot later in my
Yeah.
life that this
Mine was
happened.
too. No, no
Uh,
shame.
I was working already at Oxford Brookes, though. I've been there. I think this is my 24th year. I think so. So going back, yeah, 2005 it
Hmm.
was when I was teaching international students, speakers of English as an additional language,
Hmm.
a writing course, an academic writing course, and they were really struggling to understand how to incorporate sources in their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some feedback that I got from them was, could I give them kind of more support at a formative stage with how to use sources? Because they really didn't know what they were doing. They
Mm.
didn't know what was okay to do and not okay, or how to write well with sources. And I was thinking, actually, this is really missing from their um, education. And just around that time, access to Turnitin was
Mm.
beginning, at least
Yep.
in the
Mm.
UK, it was beginning.
Yep.
It's hard to imagine those times now, but in 2000, there were just a few people in the university who were authorized to use Turnitin, kind of as a trial
Mm.
or for a particular reason. And I managed to get myself to be one of those
Mm.
people. But my plan with it at the time was really radical because I wanted to use Turnitin at a formative stage to give students feedback on their learning. So I wanted students to be able to see their reports, see their similarity. I wanted to discuss it with them. I wanted to draft sort of useful questions to ask
Mm.
students to get them to think about how they were using sources based on what Turnitin was showing.
Yep.
And honestly, at that time, as I say, it was a really radical thing. I managed to get some institutional funding to do this as a project,
Mm.
and then I took it to different conferences. So that was from about 2006, I started doing that. And the reception I got, again, these things stay in my mind so strongly, was like people were horrified. They were
Yeah.
really heavily critical of what I was doing. And I was even called subversive
Oh.
because I was using what everyone at the time said was plagiarism detection
Yep.
for learning. So
Huh.
I was using
Even
it.
Turnitin said it.
I was turning it on its head and
Yeah.
saying, no, we can use this at a formative stage.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt like I was maybe in that respect an early pioneer in trying to get across
Mm.
that academic integrity, work in academic integrity can focus on learning, can
Yeah.
focus on development, can focus on students improving and knowing how to navigate all the challenges that they have with university study. And I was really lucky at that time to be supported by someone who became my mentor, Jude Carroll.
Hmm.
So Jude Carroll at the time was kind of trying to help universities to recognize what
Yep.
was plagiarism, what was good academic practice, kind of taking this around to different universities and getting them to develop policies. But also, she started these plagiarism events.
Yep.
I think they were called plagiarism days.
Yeah.
And you'll recall, Tricia, that you were the keynote speaker. I
Hmm.
think it was 2007, and that
Yeah.
was the first time I met you. So you came to Oxford Brookes, and we managed to get lots of people from different, mainly UK universities, to come
Hmm.
and discuss, basically the beginnings of academic integrity. At least it felt like that. I think we
Yeah.
were sort of breaking new
Yeah.
ground.
I think
Um,
I think so because when I with my first book in 2008, I leaned a lot on the work of Jude Carroll and Rebecca Moore Howard, and in
Mm,
thinking, you know, we've talked about this amongst us about how plagiarism, and we talk about this in the book, plagiarism was a big focus in the UK. Like when they said academic integrity, they meant, you know, the opposite of plagiarism, basically. Um, and but that genre, that field, that subfield, that people that focused on writing really were the ones saying, you know, we've got to make this about learning, not
Yeah.
just about cheating.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, we just wanted that to expand to all types of cheating. And keep in mind,
Mm.
folks, like David and I talk about in our book, and we got this from the Australians. There are enrolled persons who don't care about learning, but again, they're the minority of the students in our institutions, and the majority by far are the ones who will make a mistake in their learning journey, and we can help them. So thank you both for those stories. I also think it's interesting that we in our book that's coming out March 17th, doesn't have a fancy name. It's just Academic Integrity in the Age of AI. It's part of the Cambridge University Press Elements series in generative AI in education. So I think we're the third in that series so far. It's edited by Tamara Tate and Mark Washar from the University of California, Irvine. And it's, you know, I think it's a great book for people who are really new to academic integrity in many ways, right? Because we have that first chapter where we talk about academic integrity and the history of the research and the history of kind of institutional movement around that. Then we have the technological disruptions, the history, you know, artificial intelligence isn't the first disruption to academic integrity. So to give
No.
people a historical view of that. Then we move into this prediction, or this fictional prediction of what academic integrity might look like in 2045 based on the things that are happening now and if we don't change our ways. Um, and then we get into answering practical questions for now, right? Policy, procedures, teaching, learning, assessment, and ethics, which is the most important. So I'm excited for people to see this book. Mary, you know, we've all written a lot. All three of us have written a lot. What do you think this book adds to the field or the literature? And who do you think should read? Who do you think should read it?
mhm. Yeah. So I really feel that this book builds on the momentum that you created with David Rettinger with The Opposite of Cheating, because number one, it's a kind of reassurance that academic integrity matters
Mm,
and that we can continue working with academic integrity. We can continue striving to uphold academic integrity. And I think people need that sort of
yeah.
reassurance. But what we do in this book, I think one of the things it offers is these sort of practical questions. So there
Yeah.
are so many different questions that come up now that have sort of maybe multiplied, or we've got new questions now because of AI.
Hmm.
And uh, often I think a problem for people in academic integrity roles or in higher education generally is just knowing, so what do I do now? So what do I do when I think that the student has used AI, but I don't have proof, for example. Those kind of basic questions. Or how do we develop a policy now when academic integrity seems to have gone out the window? So, I mean, I think it's useful for lots of people. As you said at the beginning, it's quite, in some ways, an introductory book. So it could be for someone who doesn't have a lot of knowledge, is fairly new. But really, I think it's for anyone who's grappling with the challenges of academic integrity in the age of AI. And then again, I think it's also an enjoyable book. I think the fact that there's this future story,
Yeah.
it's really entertaining, all
Hmm.
right, and thought-provoking.
Hmm.
And I think the sort of unpacking of what can happen with academic integrity in that future scenario, it's just it's a good read
Hmm.
for many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
we will disclose this, and it's disclosed in the book. The fictional chapter was developed in collaboration with Claude, and in the book we give the link to the entire chat history with Claude, so people could, if they had nothing better to do, go through and see how that fictional story came to be with Claude's help. So Claude is not a co-author, but I would say it was a development editor for that chapter. Zeneeth, what about you? I know you've written so much about this, and but you're a good 20 some years younger. We've talked about this right now. Zeneith's the young one in the crowd here, not so much in terms of when she started academic integrity, but just age-wise. And so we talked about that a lot. Mary and I feel kind of you know, experienced and
Well, you
senior in the
are,
field.
because by the time I got to actually researching, it was a while. So
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah. So
there is
what
seniority
was
there for
what do
sure.
you think about this book? What have you been reflecting on since we finished it, and what do you
I
think is an
think
important part of it?
I definitely echo what Mary said, like where this book is taking us in general, from the conversation's point of view. And the two things that really I've been thinking about most was how much history has a role to play in how we will be in the future,
Yeah.
because I think we cannot look at anything in silos, because this is, yes, it's a new technology, but it's not so new that we look at it as just something that's just happened now and we don't know what to do with
Mhm.
it and we have nothing to fall back on.
Yeah.
So always what we have seen is that the new technologies are going to be triggering some kind of panic, right? Whether it was the printing press or the
Mhm.
calculators or the internet for that matter,
Mhm.
right? The copying and pasting was such a big deal, and it still
Wikipedia.
remains to be such a big deal.
Hmm.
Right. So
Yep.
raising these fears about cheating, intellectual decline have always been there. But
Yep.
I think the pattern that we have seen and we are continuing to see is resistance first, then experimentation, and then
Yeah.
eventually thoughtful integration,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's very, very important for everybody, whether you are an educator, whether you are a policymaker within an institution or policymaker at a country level, a platform. It's very, very important that we understand that cycle
Yeah.
that helps universities or education institutions respond with strategy rather than with fear. The other
Yes.
thing I think was, especially with the story, and then linking it back to a little bit of my experience with how I was as a student,
Hmm.
I think that moral responsibility, ultimately, we need to also start talking about that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of resources already out there about how we can incorporate AI into our education, into our classrooms. How can we do it in a manner that upholds academic integrity,
Hmm.
making sure we realize the core principles of academic integrity, of all the six of them, that they remain unchanged. But I think what's also happening, and we talk more and more about it, and we've mentioned this in the book as well, is that fundamentally we need to be looking at the moral responsibility of individuals as well.
Yes.
Because ultimately, there's only so much you can do in a university,
Yes,
right?
Zenith, I'm so glad you brought that up. I guess one of my pet peeves lately have been people stealing from students their ethical agency. Well,
Yeah,
oh, it's confusing for students who have different policies in different classes, or it's not them cheating, it's them,
yeah,
finding smarter ways to do things, or we can't blame them for wanting to take shortcuts. And what I hear that, and I agree with that in the sense of it's all of our responsibilities, and we have to, create classrooms and cultures in which integrity is the norm and not the exception. And yet, when it's 11 p.m. and my assignment's due at 11:59, I have ethical agency if we can help train folks to think in that way. I was talking with a student yesterday and he went to ChatGPT because it was late. The professor wasn't available. He couldn't find the video that he was supposed to watch. And so he asked ChatGPT to describe the video for him. And of course it made stuff up because it's useless for that kind of thing. And I said, what other ethical options did you have at that moment?
Yeah,
And and I know you both agree with me on this, but I do want the audience to think about this, about how we tackle this while not stealing from students their agency to make good ethical decisions, even in difficult times or under stress and pressure.
yeah,
How do we do that? Other than, I think we do a good job of it here after a violation because we leverage that as that experiential moment, right, to learn from. But
right.
Mary, like, is there a way we can do that in a preventative way? I'm not sure,
Well,
but
I like this question very much because
yeah,
this is kind of center of some of my efforts at present at my institution in creating a course. So I created a course that's about ethical decision making
nice.
when using AI.
Okay.
Now, some might say there's no point doing that because students are just going to use AI and we can't stop them. But
Mm-hmm.
my argument is there is always a place for ethics,
Yes.
and we can continue teaching ethical decision making. That hasn't changed. You know, we're surrounded by different sorts of possible ways to cheat now, definitely. The environment's
Yeah.
challenging. But we can still, and this is, I like to come back to your opposite of cheating case for focusing on the durable human values,
Yeah.
right? Ethics is a durable human value that
Skill.
can be
Yep.
taught,
Mm-hmm.
and we can continue our efforts. So I think um, however students are using AI, we can still get them to recognize these ethical decisions, you know. And one of the things that I introduced, it doesn't work entirely, but I quite like it as an idea. And that's the AI seesaw. So I say to students, when you decide to use AI, you are stepping on a
Mm-hmm.
seesaw.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go up and upskill and continue focusing on your learning?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to go down and downskill and reduce or eliminate your learning? Think
Mm-hmm.
about how you're using AI in a way that's going to only assist you to go up
Mm-hmm.
rather than just make you go down.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think this visual element seems to work for
Yeah.
students. I know that, of course, really, to go on a seesaw, you've got to have someone on the other end to be able to go either
Well,
up or down.
ChatGPT's on
That's
the other
where it
end,
kind of
right?
falls apart, I admit.
Yeah.
But the sort of static, so if I were to create a video of it,
Yeah.
it doesn't work quite so well. But a static image of this
Yes.
seems to get across to students that actually, yes, upskilling is really
Yes.
important. This is why I came to university. I didn't come to kind of just eliminate my learning or, go backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Well,
is a
I
really
love that
sensitive.
idea, but a little challenge back. We're notoriously bad at judging our own learning and a judge, so if is can are humans capable of making that decision? This is an honest question. Are people capable of making a decision of how much something is, because I say it all the time, right? Use it to amplify and not hinder your learning, but are we capable of actually knowing that? And does that capability grow? Like, am I better at it than a 13-year-old? Zeenath, what do you think? I know you work a lot with high school. You work a lot with younger folks and delivering
Yeah.
ethics education to younger folks too.
Yeah, and I think this original question that brought us to this about student agency is what actually led me ultimately to establish the center that we have, the
Yeah.
national level center that we have in the UAE. And you're right, a large portion of our focus is schools.
Yeah.
Because by the time students have come to university, they've had 12 years of
Yeah.
a certain type of behavior that
Yeah.
has been ingrained in them because nobody has either challenged it or nobody's addressed it.
Hmm.
And what we realized was the shift needs to be about internalizing that responsibility within the student.
Yeah.
And it is possible to do that because younger students are more open to
Mm.
understanding what is right and wrong and
Okay.
why.
Yep.
I will give you a very small example. For one of the ICAI international days,
Hmm.
we had
Oh,
run
yeah.
a session about copyright and plagiarism. And we had a seventh grade student as a speaker.
Mm.
So to do that, she had to sit with us for a couple of briefing sessions and things like that and everything. And we talked about contract cheating and, we talked about a lot of other things. So after she finished that session, her mother asked her to share her assignment from 2 years back with her younger sibling.
Mm.
And she refused to do that. She said, no, Mama, he needs to do his own work. If I give it to him, it's contract cheating,
Wow.
and the mother finally got so frustrated with her because she couldn't get through to her that the mother called the teacher who had nominated this girl to our panel and told her, what did you teach my daughter? She's making my life so difficult. But I think the moral, though, here is that just from a 1 hour session where she had to sit with me for a 30-minute
Yeah.
briefing session,
Yeah.
that's the change that came into her.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible for students to awaken that agency in students. And
Yeah.
once you do, they really do own it. And
Yeah.
and I think we do disservice when we say, no, no, students can't make these decisions. They can very much make this
Sure.
decision. They
Mm.
can engage with the tools responsibly if we give them the guardrails, but we also talk to them about why there are guardrails.
Yeah.
And majority of the problem that I have seen is people give the guardrails and say, no, you can't, or you can like this, but nobody says why.
Why? The
Mm.
why
Yeah.
is so important. And I think the
Yes.
guardrails are so important too, including supervising some assessments because, the contract cheating industry started this, and AI industry has continued it where they invite students to cheat. They convince students to cheat. Oh, it's just getting help. Oh, it's just, you've got more important things to do. And the AI companies, some of them like Perplexity, are being very honest about use us to cheat and use us to offload. And so we have to, I always say to folks, it's like you're on a diet and you have a sweet tooth. You don't fill your kitchen of donuts and force yourself to resist them. We have to give students some space and time where they're not getting inundated with these messages and they can just prove to
Yeah.
us what they know and what they can do, right? I think that's so critical, but the rest of the time not stealing their agency from them.
Mm.
Um, but we all
Yes.
need help, you know?
Absolutely.
We
And
all do. We
Yeah.
all do. Even we do.
Yeah.
I was thinking that I would think one of the key things that any educator can do is to have those conversations with students in the
Yes.
class. So, one of the problems with students really understanding and thinking about academic integrity is that it doesn't get talked about. So it's in
Yeah.
some policy they don't
Yeah.
look at until there's a problem,
Yeah.
or just kind of really being unaware because it's not something that they've directly engaged with.
Yeah.
So if an educator, maybe before explaining an assignment, actually has a discussion with students. So, how might you approach this?
Yeah.
Why would you get help or not get
Yeah.
help with something? What kind of help?
Yeah.
Or how would you use sources? But just getting them to directly work through and discover themselves the
Yeah.
rationale
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
good
Well,
practice and upholding academic integrity. I think that's the journey, and that's why I also think, in addition to those sort of direct conversations with students, having courses in place. I'm
yes.
I'm a great advocate for
Yeah.
training students through actually having teaching courses that are about academic integrity and about ethical use. So
Yes.
actually getting students to complete those courses is
Yeah.
so essential, I think.
Well, and that
Absolutely.
process also raises their metacognition, right? They're thinking about
Yeah,
their thinking, they're
Yes.
thinking about their process. Like, why do I do this first and
yeah.
not,
Yeah.
right?
And it
And that's,
becomes embedded in their
yes.
learning, you know.
Yes.
Yes.
It's part of learning. It's not a separate thing. It's not something that you only need to
No.
think about
Yeah.
if there's a problem, but it's actually part of learning because it's so important in their whole
Yeah.
approach to doing their work.
I'm thinking, to me, it's just mindfulness, really, right? It's kind of
It
being
is.
aware of where I am, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I don't know. I think a next book has to be about like what we can learn from mindfulness practices or from
Yeah.
other outside
Nice.
practices for helping
Yes.
people see this differently. Thank you both. I really appreciate speaking with you. I really appreciate working with you on this book, and I look forward to people being able to read it. And we'll have to scheme up our next project together. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks a
you. Thank you so
lot.
much for having us. It's been a wonderful experience.